Unit 2B, Rome and the Evolution from Republic to Empire. Early Romans. They were attracted by the mild climate and rich soil. Several groups of people settled in the Italian peninsula. Historians think that the Latins, a group of Latin-speaking people, lived in the area of Rome as early as 1000 BC. They built huts on Rome's hills, tended to the herds, and grew crops. After a while, they decided to band together for protection. It was this community that became known as Rome. Eventually, the Etruscans took control of Rome. The Etruscans were skilled metal workers who became rich from mining and trade. They forced enslaved people to do the heaviest work and made their own lives comfortable. The Etruscans changed Rome from a village, my laundry's done, of straw-roofed huts into a city of wood and brick buildings. I apologize if you had the volume up loud. They laid out streets, constructed temples, built Rome's first sewers, and arranged public buildings around a central square. The Etruscans paved the way for the Romans to create a great civilization. And remember, here is the Italian peninsula. Peninsula means there's water on three sides. And then here is Rome, the city of Rome. So question 1 says, what would attract the people to settle in the area around present-day Rome? So if we look at the map, why would the Latins and then the Etruscans want to settle in this present-day Rome area? And we know that they were attracted by the mild climate and rich soil. I'm going to write it like a 6th grader. You guys would say good weather and good farmland. The next section says the birth of the Republic. The Etruscans ruled Rome for more than 100 years. Under the Etruscans, Rome became wealthy and powerful. However, the ruling family called the Tarquins grew crueler and crueler. The king was said to have many people killed, including many of his own advisors. So that would be people who he worked for or worked with or who he hired. If they went against him, he would have them killed. Pretty cruel. Finally, the Romans rebelled. They overthrew the monarchy and set up a republic. A republic is a form of government in which the leader is not a king or a queen, but someone put in office by citizens with the right to vote. In a republic, the citizens have the power. The rise of the Roman Republic marked the beginning of a new chapter in Rome's history. So what caused the early Romans to move away from a monarchy and start a republic? The Tarquin, which is the monarchy, was becoming very mean or cruel. And here we can see a little table that talks about the patricians. We talked about this in our notes, how they were the wealthy, the powerful. They were the nobles, and they made up a small minority of the population. And then we talked about on the other side, we had the plebeians, which were your common people, a lot of peasants, craftspeople, traders, other workers, and they made up a majority of the population. So you've got patricians and plebeians. And that describes Roman society. It says, although being a republic seems democratic and fair, the Roman society was divided into two groups. Many of Rome's plebeians, or common people, were calling for changes in the government. They wanted more of a say in how the city was run. Rome was run by powerful nobles called patricians. Only patricians could be elected to office, so they held all the political power. The plebeians were peasants, craftspeople, traders, and other workers. Even though plebeians outnumbered patricians, they couldn't take part in the government. This will lead to changes in the government until all citizens of Rome were given a voice in their government, regardless of their ranking in society. So here you have the patricians. They are the wealthy or rich, the nobles, and then plebeians are your common people. There we go. And now we have the battle for the Mediterranean. It says, as Rome continued to grow, they came into conflict with another emerging civilization, Carthage. This conflict was over trade routes throughout the Mediterranean Sea. Rome and Carthage would fight a series of wars called the Punic Wars. Rome was ultimately victorious, which means they won. The result of these wars was that Rome began to expand its control throughout the Mediterranean region. So why was the Mediterranean so important? Trade routes. And that's going to equal, not the and sign. Where is that dollar sign? There it is. A lot of money. So trade routes, if you controlled that, that meant a lot of money for you. The next section talks about parts of the Republic. The Roman Republic was divided into 3 parts. It was a tripartite government. This was purposely done to separate the power and prevent one person from having absolute or complete total power. And I apologize for putting this chart below the questions, but if you look at this chart, you can see the 3 branches. They had magistrates, they had the Senate, and then they had a group called the assemblies and tribunes. So what's one difference between the Roman Republic and the government of the United States? We have 3 different branches of government. Not number 7. That's right below it. We also have different roles of citizens. An example would be women can vote in the U.S. So we have an example that women were not allowed to vote in ancient Rome, but they are allowed to vote in the United States. A similarity is that tripartite government, and we do have 3 branches, which helps us with checks and balances. So here's this part. I'm going to highlight them for you just because it's a little confusing. So we have checks and balances. We have 3 branches, 3 different parts of our government in the United States. And we do that for checks and balances so that no one branch ever has total control. And that is what this next little paragraph is about. It says, by giving each branch different duties and powers, no one branch could seize control of the government. We call this checks and balances. These core ideas of the Roman government influenced the United States model for a republic. Then we have this little section about the 12 tables. The Roman government felt it was important to write down the laws for all to see. They were placed upon bronze plaques called the 12 Tables of Law. The Romans were given credit for making laws that everyone has to follow. A lot of times if you were wealthy, like the patricians, they would have to follow certain laws. The plebeians might have certain laws. And then you might have a whole nother group of laws or a group of code of laws for the government officials. So Romans were given a chance to make that more fair. This one says, what are checks and balances and what led to the Roman Republic to use them in the government? They are to prevent one branch or person from ever having too much power. And now we're going to talk about the move toward dictatorship. In times of war or other emergencies, the Roman people often elected a temporary dictator. A dictator in Roman times was a magistrate who was appointed to temporarily deal with an immediate crisis or emergency. Julius Caesar was a successful Roman general. His soldiers had the most respect for him and were extremely loyal. Although a patrician, he was very popular with the plebeians and wanted to see a social reform. So he wanted to give more rights and power to the plebeians. For example, Caesar would give land to his soldiers for their loyalty and food to the plebeians. To the majority of Romans, he was a hero and a man to be respected. Julius Caesar was able to get appointed as dictator for a longer than usual time period. During his time as dictator, he continued to make decisions without the consent of the Senate. This weakened the Senate and the patrician class. It also gave Caesar more power than any Roman had since the Tarquin kings. This caused some senators to become jealous of his popularity and power. They were angry over his reforms, and they feared that he would name himself King of Rome. Secretly, they plotted to assassinate him. So, what did Julius Caesar do that caused many Roman senators to compare him to the Tarquin kings? I apologize for that. So, what happened was, that's right here. He continued to make decisions without the consent, and eventually he kind of makes the senators feel like they're never going to get their power back. So, he takes more power than any other Roman had before, which worried the senators. They worried they would lose, all their power. Now, you could probably say that in better words. But basically, he takes more power. So it was the first time that anyone had come close to the Tarquin kings and the amount of power that they had. On March 15, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was murdered on the floor of the Senate. The reaction of the Roman people was shock and anger. They loved Caesar. After years of a power struggle, Octavius, sometimes called Octavian, the nephew to Julius Caesar, emerged as the sole leader and took the title Augustus Caesar. By naming himself Augustus Caesar, Octavius is responsible for single-handedly ending the Roman Republic. Rome would now be an empire ruled by emperors. So why would Octavius name himself an emperor, not a king? Becoming a king, and I'm going to put king in like quotes, got his uncle killed. I'm going to put Julius killed, and he wanted total power. The senators that people voted for, the senators that people elected, are the ones that had planned and executed the plan to assassinate his uncle. So he feared that if he called them king, they might create another occurrence or plan to sabotage him. By saying we're not doing senators, we're not doing citizens, we're not voting, I am the emperor, he was claiming total power right there, which is what Rome needed because they were struggling. And now we have the expansion in the Pax Romana. Under the reign of emperors, so after Augustus, the empire continued to expand. Augustus, for example, worked to strengthen and improve the empire. He cleaned the city streets and had many new buildings erected. Augustus once said, "I found Rome a city of brick, and I left it a city of marble." And if you've ever seen marble, it's that really shiny, beautiful stuff that's sometimes on counters. So he's saying he took these old bricks and he made them the shiny new city. Rome's territory no longer just meant the Italian peninsula. The empire began to expand deeper into the European continent and the Mediterranean Sea. The time of the emperors also meant a time of relative peace and prosperity, a period of success and wealth known as the Pax Romana, which means Roman peace. This became the Golden Age. And if you look right here, I don't know why I mixed up the pictures. This was the Roman Empire at the beginning, and this is the expansion of it at its height, so how much they controlled. So the pictures are kind of backwards. So how would the expansion of the Roman Empire affect trade in and out of the empire? Trade increased all over the empire, and that meant more money and items. We're going going to say new items were spread. New ideas were spread over this empire. New leaders are going to emerge during this time period. It's a time where like ideas and cures for diseases, information is spreading, books are spreading. People are starting to share all these great achievements in architecture and government and lifestyle. So we just see everything during the Roman Empire is just booming. It's a great time. And the last section is the Roman achievements. In architecture and engineering, the Romans greatly advanced previous accomplishments and were often focused on solving problems about everyday life. They changed the post and lintel and developed the arch and dome, which they used to build higher, more stable structures. The most famous example in Roman engineering is the Colosseum. And you can see the Colosseum. Here we've got Roman roads. It says they invented cement, which allowed them to build bigger and stronger buildings. The Roman roads were just as important. They allowed the empire to be unified, that means together, for both trade and protection. And then we have the aqueducts, which I'm going to put down here so you can see the picture. The aqueducts carried fresh water from the mountains to the large population into the cities. This water was used for fountains, bathhouses, and sewers. So it says, how have the achievements of Rome affected modern civilization? And down here it says, why were the achievements of, of Rome so important? And you have so many different answers for this, but we still use many of the Roman achievements today in the United States. If you think about the architecture, if you think about the columns they got from the Greeks that we still use, the idea of cement, roads, even democracy and republic, we still use so many of their achievements today. That's why they're so very important.